It's a new year and we've already had one new camera announcement from Panasonic with the GH5s, which I've been using quite recently to film the Hasselblad video on the sly. Shh. Now I must add that this video is not a review of the GH5s. If you want one of those, then I've just done one of those for the CVP channel. It's a review slash preview thing. Whatever. But this video is my opinion of whether I think the GH5s is worth upgrading to if, like me, you've currently got a GH5. I've been a Panasonic user since the GH4, well actually I lie, since the GM1, but for video, since the GH4, and then I upgraded to the GH5 because it's got so much more woof. So does the GH5s have enough woof to get my wallet out? Well, no, and here are my reasons, starting off with number 1. It has less megapixels, thus better low light as predicted. There were plenty of talks about how this will be a low light beast of a GH5, and in some ways it is true, it works better in low light. You can see the CVP video for comparison shots of the GH5 and GH5s, but in terms of how much improvement there is, I don't really think there is as much as 2 stops difference between a GH5 and a GH5s. At ISO 1600, files look as clean as a fresh bit of toilet roll. ISO 3200 still looking good. 6400 is really where it tops off, and ISO 12800 you could use it, but well, it looks like this. Above this, it's like used toilet roll. It's got that extended ISO range, it's got dual native ISO, but at the end of the day, it's limited really by the size of its sensor. I mean, perhaps I'm expecting too much. Almost 2 stops is not that bad. It's a difference between an f1.4 lens and almost an f2.8 lens. But that's the thing. Since I chucked all my money into the Micro Four Thirds systems, I bought some fast glass, like this Leica Summilux DG f1.4 12mm aspherical with a 62mm filter head. How do I know? Because it's facing me right now. I mean, on the positive side, a lot of the best native zooms for Panasonic or Olympus are f2.8 or f4, so it's nice to have that slightly better noise performance. But, you know, I was just expecting something a bit more than that. I was expecting something groundbreaking, something that will change the game. But with a new year will come a new camera from Sony, of course, with the a7S III, and that will probably blow the GH5s out of the water with its full frameness. And the funny thing is, Sony are supposedly the ones that make the sensor within the GH5s. They're not only game changers, and I don't get paid to say that, but they own the whole bloody game. And another thing about the smallest sensor size, and this is not something I'm complaining about, I've learned to live with it since using the GH4 and then GH5, is the dynamic range. I mean, the files that you get out of this camera are perhaps not as robust as some of the competition. When it comes to grading it, when it comes to adjusting the exposure, the highlights just go just like that. Just like that. And why am I raising this point? Because the rumours websites were saying it's going to have improved dynamic range with the GH5s. Not true. Sorry. Not a scientific test by any means, but I couldn't see any difference. But look, you can get gorgeous files from it. You work with the camera, not get limited by it. And not as robust or not, I'm still loving the look of Panasonic's files. And the GH5 produces the goods in good light too. Boom! Point number 3, and going back to point number 1. Weird how that works, where I was talking about how I've invested in fast glass. The Leica Summilux f1.4 12mm, Leica Summilux 25mm f1.4. I think you can see a common theme running through here. None of those lenses have image stabilization built into the lens, but that's fine because the GH5 has in-body image stabilization and it's fantastic. It's not gimbal-like, but really it's not quite far off. GH5s, they've disabled it. They don't have in-body image stabilization. It's in the freaking menu system, grayed out, just perhaps to laugh in your face to say, hey, you could have had it, but you don't. it was quite apparent when I was doing the handheld vlog style shot that it was shaking like a bobblehead toy, so I decided to shoot the rest of the video on a tripod or on the floor. That has made it less of a usable practical camera for me. I mean, perhaps this is something to do with the 10.2 megapixel sensor that is now within the GH5s. There aren't enough pixels perhaps to do, I don't know. All I know is that it doesn't have in-body image stabilization. I mean, if you're a vlogger, a run and gun shooter, you're most likely not going to be carrying a tripod around with you. That is a huge shame. I mean, with the GH5, you can have in-body image stabilization as well as the lens stabilization, and that makes it double stabilization. And if we're talking about things to keep the same as the GH5, one thing that they did unfortunately keep the same as the GH5 is the autofocusing system. Now, it's been widely talked about how bad the GH5's autofocusing system is. Just search for GH5 autofocus fix. Everyone's done a video about it, apart from me because I realised you can't polish a turd. Focus. 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 And the one last thing in a non-Apple way is the price. At $2,500, about £2,000, that's about £700 or $500 more than the GH5. Now, when it comes to buying gear for making videos, it's a business-like decision. I'm not saying it's a bad camera, it's really good for people in production. It's a great tool for that kind of stuff. It's got the 240fps and HD DCI options and some additions to make it more suitable for professionals. For YouTubers like me, I would have to weigh up how much I would get from selling my GH5 and then how much I'd have to put forward for the GH5s. Any money I've put in is what I have to earn back to break even. So I have to be uber critical. I have to make sure that I get a huge amount of value more to justify it. Just as well means I don't have to spend anything. But for those who haven't bought one yet, count yourself lucky that now you've got two good options to choose from.